Welcome back, what's going on? It's time for the Street Fighter League Roundup. Myself, Logan Sama, here every week, and we check out the 3 regions that are competing for dominance across the season. There's only a couple weeks left of the regular season before we get down to the playoffs, and things are heating up. There's some incredible action for you, so let's get straight into Street Fighter League Europe. Welcome back, it's Street Fighter League Pro Europe 2022. We're deep into the Street Fighter League season here in Europe, and for week 9 we had 2 very important matches. First up, it was the run back of one of our most exciting and closely contested matches of the season. It's Team GO versus Reason Gaming. Reason Gaming this time were on the away side, and they put forward a lineup that saw MQS leading off with Fang. Then it was One Step Layered with Karin, and Soundboy in great form in the anchor role with the Cody. MQS speculated who he was going to be facing, and in the end it was Akainu who stepped forward, and he locked in with his classic main Guile. It looked like MQS was going to take another big name, but Akainu made a comeback at set point down, and from there the momentum was all his as he closed out a 2-1 victory. The ever-reliable Valmaster stepped up for the second battle, and it was Chun-Li against One Step Layer's Karin. Valmaster showed his experience as he baited out this wrecker and punished with a critical art for a big win that put Team GO 20 points clear going into the all-important anchor match. You can see why Reason put all their hope in Soundboy. His record so far this season has been exceptional, and it was down to Luffy to step up to try and ruin it for him. Things started well for Soundboy as he landed a big combo and then closed out for a kill for the first game to put him in the lead. But Luffy didn't have to reach too deep into his bag of tricks, this old faithful closing out the second game to level it up 1-1. Luffy made the right read from the corner here, and that put him in position to get the win and go ahead 2-1. Like a shark in water, Luffy could smell blood now, and the resets were coming thick and fast for Soundboy as he fell behind. But he showed he wasn't out yet as he checks this dash command grab attempt and stays in it. Unfortunately for Soundboy, it wasn't enough to stave off Luffy's momentum, and he closed it out 3-1 for a huge 40-point victory for Team GO. And despite both of these teams having a 3-3 record, it's Team GO that are 50 points clear now of Reason Gaming. In our second match, it was a fight for dominance at the top of the leaderboard as BMS faced off against Mouse Sports. The lineup put forward was the 4 Phils, leading off with Falk. Broski was back in the place with the flip-flops and the Oro, and Problem X put himself in the anchor role but locked in with Alex this time round. Much to everyone's surprise, Mr. Crimson stepped up in the first game and of course locked in with Dalsim. Problem X watched eagerly on from the sideline, no doubt looking for data for the playoffs that are coming very soon. And it looked to be all good news as the 4 Phils landed this for the first game. But Mr. Crimson showed why he is one of the coolest characters in the business, and he kept his calm, put the 4 Phils under pressure and closed out game number 2. That pressure was enough to make the 4 Phils switch, and he surprisingly went to one of his secondary characters in Akira. Things did not work out for Phils, and this pick seems to be a bust. He went down to Crimson, and it was a big opening victory for BMS. After making his debut in Week 8, Link Excello was back against Broski, and it was Nikali that was locked in. Too many Tengu Stone mix-ups seemed to break Link Excello's spirit, and this blocked EXDP sealed his fate as Broski leveled it up, and we are going into a third and deciding game. The young prodigy Killzyou stepped in and very surprisingly went for Mika. Now, not only is this a pick that you'd expect for M. Bison, but Problem X has so much experience against Luffy and specifically likes Alex for that reason. He made short work of Killzyou in the first game, and he sent him straight back to the character select screen. Killzyou played with much more confidence now that he was back with Karin, poking out with that medium kick and then waking up with an EX reversal to close out the second round and level it out 1 apiece. A change of scenery for the next battle, and Problem X gambled that Killzoo would not respect his wake up. The CA was blocked, and Killzoo went into the lead. Killzoo's excellent use of roundhouse in this matchup earned him this back throw, and then the meaty EX Mujinkyaku closed it out, and you can see just how much it means to the full team to secure this 30-10 victory for BMS. After 6 matches played by all teams, it was BMS that were 25 points clear on the top, and Mouse floundering in 4th place just on the edge of the playoff picture. It's still very tight though in the playoff race, and Reason Gaming are still in the hunt as we have 2 more matches to play for each team. As you can see, Wild Blast unfortunately are looking like they're out of the running. Next week, Mouse have the opportunity to bounce back against Reason, and they're going to need a big score if they want to get that preferential seeding in the playoffs, and BMS are going to be looking to cement their #1 seed position against a Wild Blast team that are now playing just for pride.
And only the bold will cross it. This is Street Fighter League.
In the US, it was week 8, and we had 2 exciting matches. First up was Red Rooster versus Panda Global. Panda were the away side, and they put forward a very strong lineup with JB, Nephew, and Punk in the anchor role. Hot Dog stepped up first to face JB, and he picked M. Bison. His search for points this season of SFL continues, as it was a sound 2-0 victory for the Rashid. Back in the lineup this week, Mono picked, of course, Fang to face Nephew's Colleen. Nephew's season continues to fall start as he loses 2-1 to Mono. Nephew still looking for his first points this season as well. And in the anchor match, it was the marquee matchup that we've been looking forward to, as Ajax Fidelity on that Ed went up against Punk, who opened up with Ken. Ajax is one of the breakout stars this season in Street Fighter League, and Punk cannot afford to make mistakes like this one, as he dropped the first game. That sent Punk back to character select, and it seemed like the return to Karin worked out for him. A familiar sight for many seasons, the lower forward confirm into the critical art, leveled it out at 1 round apiece, but it was Ajax that secured the 3rd game and pulled ahead into a 2-1 lead, putting the pressure on Punk. And as Punk chased the game, the breakout EX upper into the V-trigger activation sealed it for Ajax for a huge 3-1 win for him, and a 30-10 victory, much needed for the Red Rooster team. Our second match was Endemic versus CLG. CLG were the away team, and they chose to leave Just a Kid on the bench, as Samurai was in the first game, locked into Luke. It was Filipino Man returning with Rose in game 2, and Chris CCH with Luke in the anchor match. Endemic, with the luxury of 2 Capcom Cup champions, opted to send Captain Shine forwards with Cody in game 1 to face Samurai, and it paid off as he secured the 2-1 victory to start the ball rolling for Endemic. And then in game 2, it was GamerB on Lucia who stepped up to face Filipino Man's Rose. There was no messing around from the veteran player, and he closed out a 2-0 victory to put all of the pressure on CLG going into this final match. Having the luxury of which Capcom Cup champion to pick, it was Idom who stepped up with Poison to go in the anchor role, but Chris CCH seemed to start out very confident. Idom made the switch back to Laura, and that is when things started to turn in his favour as he levelled it 1-1. The tempo of Idom's corner pressure too much for Chris CCH to break out of, and he went down 2-1. Desperate to bring it back from 2-1 down, Chris CCH swung for the fences, but the EX Rising Rocket was blocked, and Idom closed it out for a 3-1 win, and more importantly, a 40-point sweep for Endemic. That saw Endemic move ahead of NASA by 5 points, but NASA, of course, have a game in hand. CLG dropped down into 3rd position. Red Rooster moving up the table with that victory today. UYU still at the bottom on 75 points. We'll find out whether UYU can turn that around as they face Red Rooster next week in Week 9, and Panda and NASA X Bandits is match 2. It's the final 2 weeks in Japan, and in day 1, we saw some very important games. First up was Nagoya Oja Bodystar Mildom versus the now out of the running Team Iksha. So this was an opportunity for Nagoya Oja Bodystar Mildom to run up the points. Iksha had the added disadvantage of being on the away side, and they put forward a lineup of Gunfight on Anix, Inaba on M. Bison, and Storm Kubo with Abigail in the anchor role, leaving Crusher on the benches. In the first game, Akira stepped up with Kami to face Gunfight's Alex, and he gave a good account of himself, but in the end, Akira was too strong and managed to close out a convincing victory in the final round to make a big statement.
Right here with that perfect KO.
In the second game, Fudo stepped up to face Inaba's M. Bison, and of course, the choice was Armika. The experience and pressure proved to be too much, and Fudo closed out a 2-0 victory, putting Nagoya Oja Bodystar on the edge of a big victory. It all came down to Daigo's guile to close it out. But no one told Storm Kubo what the plan was meant to be, and he took the first game. Daigo quickly identified what Kubo's plan was, and Daigo was able to close it out and level it up 1 apiece. In the third game, Kubo was once again sitting on a full stock of resources, and this back fierce activation was all he needed to drain the 50% life bar that Daigo had left and pull into a 2-1 lead. It almost worked again for Storm Kubo, but he was just too far away from getting the critical art. He gambled on the command grab, and Daigo happily punished with a critical art of his own, and we're going to a game 5. In the end, Daigo was able to mitigate Kubo's strategy, and even though he was chasing for that V-trigger comeback, Daigo was able to back off and close out the set that I'm sure was closer than he would have liked. But it's a big 40 points on the board for Oja Bodystar Mildom. In match number 2, the Good 8 squad went up against Gyogun, who were on the away side. With the Good 8 squad already booking their place in the playoffs, Gyogun are desperate for the points as they are scrapping it out mid-board. Gyogun were on the away side, and they put forward a lineup of Mago on Luke, Mizua on Cody, and Machabo, who put forward his M. Bison in the anchor role. In a shock decision, they left Moke on the bench this week. Good 8 squad seemed to be feeling confident, and they put forward Kawano first, but that confidence was misplaced as Margot closed out a emphatic 2-0 victory in game 1. One of the most reliable players this season in Street Fighter League Japan has been Dogura, and he stepped up to face Mizua's Cody in the second game. It looked like Dogura was going to close it out, but this incredible comeback from Mizua took us to a final round.
Gets a counter hit, and that'll do it.
But that comeback wasn't going to happen twice, and Mizua walks into a stand fierce. Dogura happily obliges and closes out a win for the Good 8 squad, which meant that we were going to a deciding third game, and it was Pugera's Balrog that stepped up to face Machabo in the anchor match. Machabo's been so impressive this season with his Nakali, and you could see that this M. Bison was not his main character as he dropped this meaty Pugera obliges with the back throw to take game number 1. Machabo becoming predictable as well as he continued to go for the neutral jumps, Pugera ready with the punish, and he takes game number 2. And in the third and final game, Pugera just built the EX bar to chase down this backdash and close out a decisive 3-0 victory, which meant a 30-10 win for the Good 8 squad, and Gyogun are still floundering mid-table. Day 2 saw Saishunkan Seoul facing Komufa Detonation in match number 3. Saishunkan Seoul were desperate to get points on the board. They were away, and they opened up with YHC Mochi with Dalsim. It was Shuto with Urien in the second position, and Higuchi with Guile was in the anchor role as Nemo left himself on the bench. Uryo fancied his luck again against YHC Mochi, having faced him in the first time round. But in a close set, YHC Mochi proved too strong and managed to close out a 2-1 victory to start things in motion for Saishunkan Seoul. In game number 2, it was Itabashi Zangief who stepped up, this time with G going up against Shuto Zurian. At set point down, Itazan successfully baited out this critical art and kept himself in the game. But the power of the Aegis was too strong and Shuto was able to close it out here for a decisive victory. With Detonation 20 points down, it came upon John Takeuchi to face Higuchi in the anchor match. It was of course Cody, and things looked to be going well for Taka as he took the first game with the signs of a Detonation fight back. But Higuchi was not afraid to challenge even against the knife, and he took the second game to level it up 1 apiece. It seemed like John Takeuchi couldn't get the V-trigger momentum moving, and it was Higuchi who closed out the third game to pull into a lead. Once again, the V-trigger wasn't enough to close out the round for Takeuchi. Higuchi challenged again, and this critical art closed out a huge 40-point victory for Saishunkan Seoul. Critical points to see them moving up the leaderboard. And in our final match of round 13, it was V6 plus FAV Roto Gaming versus Shinobism. This time, Shinobism were the designated away team, and they put forward a very strong roster. It was Fujimura on Luke opening it up. In the second, the familiar face of Yamaguchi, back-to-back Lukes, and Momochi, the team captain, was once again in the anchor role with Cody. In an interesting choice, Torameshi stepped up with Dalsim to face Fujimura. In a dominant final round of the first game, a wall of limbs was too much and Torameshi closed it out for the first win. Throughout Street Fighter League Japan, Fujimura has shown off some incredible tech. This moment was almost sensational, but he was able to close it out with this air juggle in the corner. In the end, it was 2 clean back-to-back rounds, and Torameshi was the one who put another 10 points on the board. Fujimura shocked in the first game. If Torameshi stepping up with Dalsim was surprising, Bonchan's pick of Sagat to avoid the mirror match against Yamaguchi was equally so. But Bonchan's experience with Sagat paid off, and in a dominant 2-0 victory, closed it out here. That meant all the pressure was on team captain Momochi as Shinobism were 20 points down, and it was Takedo that stepped up with Luke to face his Cody. Takedo wasn't willing to wait for the timeout victory, and he let off the DP to close out game number 1. And in another final second situation, Takedo showed no fear to close down and throw Momochi to death for the second win. Momochi went back to the lobby to take his time and think a little bit about his strategy, and the patience paid off as he was able to close out the game number 3 and bring it back to only 2-1 down. But in another last few seconds of the round situation, Takedo challenged and capitalized with the V-trigger to close out the win 3-1 and 40 points to 0 for FAV Roto. A big loss for Shinobism this week. Detonation are now officially out of the running, and Gyogun need a huge result in week 14 to make it into the playoffs. Shinobism dropped down into the danger zone as FAV Roto move ahead of them. Good 8 squad, of course, still clear, and it's Saishunkan and Oja Body Style Mildom that are battling it out for those top seed positions in the playoffs. For the first time in 4 weeks, the leaderboard has actually changed, and it's a big drop for Shinobism Gaming. As you can see, they go down from 2nd to 5th. All of those teams moving up 1 spot, with the good 8 squad maintaining the position that they have done since week 3. Next week, it's the last week of regular season battles for Street Fighter League Japan, and it all comes down to this. Good 8 squad versus Saishunkan Seoul. That's a very difficult last week match for Saishunkan. And we have Iksha versus FAV Roto Gaming. They're going to be hoping to run up a big score so they can push into those playoff spots. Shinobism are going to be facing Detonation, who are now playing for Pride as they're out of the running. And in a very tough match, Gyogen are at home with Oja Body Style Mildom away in our last match of the final week of the regular season. We will know exactly how the playoff picture looks after these games. And that's all we got time for this week. One more week of Japan, only a couple more weeks in Europe and the US until it's playoff season, and I cannot wait. What an incredible time for competitive Street Fighter V it is. It's never been as exciting as it is right now. I'll see you next week for more Street Fighter League action, but don't forget, right here on the Reversal channel, we do the Roundup every week where we look at all of the biggest FGC tournaments around the world, and of course there's more content dropping with some of your favorite players and FGC personalities all the time on the channel. So give us a sub, drop a like, and most importantly, let us know who your MVP was this week in Street Fighter League in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. I'll see you next week, but from me and from Reversal, we'll see you next time round.